Hi, as the question states here, what do you know about telomeres? And I really truly believe that this is the most important conversation that we could be having today is around the science and research and what we've learned about telomeres and the role that they play in our health. And what I'd like to do is just break this down and help you to understand this important and essential role that the telomeres do play in our health. I was mentored by the geneticist, Dr. Bill Andrews, and after being introduced to him in 2009, I have not stopped talking about this ever since. And so here we are, over a decade later. I've done over 5,000 presentations on telomeres around the world. And I never get tired of sharing the information because of the impact that it's having on human beings, on individuals. And I really don't see any finish line to this because there's so many people out there that don't even know anything, that they even have a telomere in the medical community and the healthcare professionals as well. I've lectured in front of doctors and pharmacists and surgeons and dentists and chiropractors. And it's a very small percentage of them that even know what a telomere is. So let's dive into this and go into the science. Telomeres are on the ends of the chromosome. They're being depicted in red right here. And then your chromosomes sit in the middle of every cell, which is called the nucleus. And what's important to know about the chromosome is that it houses our DNA. And that's really the foundation of our health is the DNA. The DNA is being represented in these little steps in the ladder that we're all familiar with. And right where these colors come together, there's a little molecule right in between those two colors, and they call it a nucleic bond. But that nucleic bond right there, it doesn't hold itself together. That's the role of the telomere. So I made a rope with some red electrical tape to kind of depict the role that the telomere is playing with the chromosome. It's kind of like the plastic tip on the end of a shoestring. Dr. Bill Andrews often refers to that to try to help people understand, get that mental image. What is the role that that plastic tip plays on a shoestring? And we're all familiar with that. We know that it holds the shoestring together. And as the plastic tip starts to wear away, we actually see the shoestring start to fray. So I actually made the different stages of telomere degeneration throughout the course of our lives being represented in really 4 different areas. When we're conceived, we already lose telomere. It's already degenerating in the womb. And by the time we're pre-teenagers, we've lost over 1/3 of the telomere. Now, again, the red tape is playing the role of the telomere here, and you can see where the telomeres no longer exist. It has degenerated, it's shortened. Well, this part where the telomere no longer exists has exposed these nucleic bonds, and what happens is they separate or they fray, like the shoestring. And what we need to make the correlation here with the fraying of that DNA where they separate, that's like losing software. And each one of these steps contains very important and very essential information that operates the function of the cell. And all of our cells, we have over 100 trillion cells that make up the human anatomy: hair, skin, eyes, organs, bones, brain. Everything is made up of cells. And if we lose any DNA, it'd be like losing software in a computer. It's not going to run as efficiently, as effectively. There's going to be some glitches. Now, the shorter the telomere gets, that represents losing more and more of these nucleic bonds down the row. And that would be losing a lot of software. So we're going to really see some symptoms of aging and the degenerative issues that start to show up in the different parts of the human anatomy. Now, telomeres do not shorten at the same rate throughout the entire body. There's different dynamics that cause that. And even from individual to individual, 2 people living in the same home, even eating the same foods, they're still going to have a difference in the way that their telomeres are shortening. There's so many different variables, free radicals, the things that we're exposed to on a daily basis. Even the compounds and chemicals that are in our foods today. And so where those distribute, where they land, it's just going to be, like a fingerprint from person to person. You could also shorten your telomeres through overexertion physically. They can accelerate the telomere shortening. Stress could also do it, and people carry stress in different ways and in different parts of the body. Could be in the gut, could be in the neck, could be in the back. And so that's actually going to help to accelerate the telomere in its shortening. Again, there's so many different variables, and I'll cover a few more of those before we end with this slide. When your telomere reaches a certain length, It's called senescence. In a computer, when we lose enough software, we say the computer crashes and you can't even turn it on anymore. Well, when a cell in a human being reaches that level, we call it senescence, which means death of the cell. And if that cell is part of an organ that's keeping you alive, you would die of a degenerative disease at that point. You wouldn't have severe health challenges. You would be dead. Now, if it was in an organ that's not keeping you alive, like let's say your eyes, then you would be blind. You wouldn't have a degenerative disease at that point. You would literally be blind, not macular degeneration or astigmatism or needing glasses. That would be before senescence, when you've lost, enough DNA that those cells on a macro level are being impacted. Every symptom of aging and every degenerative disease has been linked to this process. I mean, it just makes sense. As you're losing, quote unquote, software in the different cells and different organs, they're going to malfunction. And then you're going to be labeled with different types of diseases that they come up with names for, like COPD, lung cancer, liver disease, kidney disease, cardiovascular issues of all the different sorts, pulmonary issues, Alzheimer's, dementia, thyroid disease, diabetes, osteoporosis, having the need for a knee replacement or a hip replacement or some kind of shoulder surgery. All of that would have to do with the telomeres and their inability to run optimally. And trauma could do it as well. Like I was saying with over-exercising, getting banged up in an accident and having trauma could damage and actually cause senescence in a cell immediately and impacting certain areas of the body that really got impacted with the trauma. And a stroke, we can see, does the same thing. It could cause senescence or severe damage to a telomere in a different part of the human anatomy as well. That's why stroke victims lose different motor skills and things like that. So all of these things are related to the telomere, even cancer. And so when we look at things like cigarettes, we know that on the package of cigarettes it says they cause cancer. But they don't necessarily cause cancer, but they cause the chain effect to happen. The chemicals that are in cigarettes shorten your telomeres faster. So it's called accelerated telomere shortening. And so if you're smoking these chemicals every single day and exposing those cells in this particular area, the throat and lung area, to the accelerated telomere shortening, then you're going to run into problems in that area faster and sooner than other people would that aren't smoking. And other people that aren't smoking may never have any issues because the telomeres in that area didn't get to that level. So cigarettes, again, they don't cause cancer. They shorten your telomeres faster, which then starts to cause the problems with those particular organs that they're impacting. And then they label you with the problem that's become a macro problem, a very well and easily identified problem with the human anatomy. So every single one of the degenerative diseases are linked to that. That's why I was given the Nobel Prize, learning the important role that the telomere plays. So if you have healthy, long telomeres, you would never have those issues. And so we know the body's capable of healing itself. Well, when I was introduced to Bill Andrews and his science and research, he had me at hello. This was in 2009. I started to understand this important role that telomeres play. And I was so impressed by it that I got to know Bill Andrews, and I was actually mentored by Bill. And it's been such a great honor to learn these things on this in-depth level and then be able to put this presentation together in a way that people are able to understand it. And Bill Andrews actually, credited me in putting together a presentation where he said, Dave, that's the best that I've ever seen to take a very complicated research and make it easy for everybody to understand. So I think you can get a sense of the important role that the telomeres play now. And one other thing that I want to mention here, in April 2011, or 2012, it was the front page of USA Today. It said that pre-teenagers, their telomeres are 10 years shorter than they used to be just in recent decades. Now, I'm going to make this correlation for you from the things that I put together and the things that I've learned and also the things that I've observed. I believe it's the processed food and the preservatives and chemicals that are used in those processed foods that are causing the majority of this problem with the telomeres in pre-teenagers and in human beings in general, but especially in pre-teenagers. A lot of people are eating mostly processed food. In some cases, they're eating all processed food. So like Pop-Tarts, potato chips, fast food, things that are in wrappers and can sit on the shelf, right? They're very quick, they're very convenient, they're very inexpensive. but they take their toll. They're accelerating the telomere shortening. And when you're eating most of those foods all day long, every day, day after day, it starts to add up. Now, the Surgeon General, in a whole nother article, I'll make another correlation for you here. The Surgeon General didn't mention anything about telomeres, but actually stated it's the first generation of children that won't live as long as their parents. The lifespan is getting shorter now. And that's a telomere issue. So if they're eating this processed food that is shortening the telomeres faster and accelerating that, then that means they're going to get to senescence faster and they're going to die at a younger age. So we can really start to understand some of these more important facts around these statements that we hear and these things that we observe. And with processed food, you don't know where those chemicals are going to land within the body. You know, they get into the blood and start to circulate pretty much anywhere. And it's kind of like spinning a roulette wheel. And where the marble falls is where it's going to happen to have a problem. But you can't really guess where that's going to be accurately. And so we can see all of these different things that are going on with health challenges and degenerative issues, and even on a cognitive level. So Bill Andrews, knowing that the body has an ability to heal itself on this level, has really dedicated his life to understanding why isn't the body healing this? And he knew, and I'm not going to go into that science here, but he knew that there was a gene within the chromosome that has the ability to fix this. It should never get to this level, let alone senescence, not even this level here. It's like when we get a cut in our skin. There's an innate ability with the skin cells to heal that immediately when the cut happens. Well, he knew that as immediately as the telomere starts to degenerate, the chromosome can heal that. And he set out to understand why isn't it. And he actually identified on a molecular level what the problem was and what was being suppressed within the chromosome. And in 1994, he made that discovery on a molecular level. And it has to do with the gene that produces this enzyme within the chromosome itself. And every cell and every chromosome has that gene. And it produces this enzyme called telomerase. And by 1997, after identifying this gene, he was able to unsuppress it with human skin cells, working with them in a petri dish. And they had invented the procedures to do that, what only they know how to do in their lab. And that is to monitor the induction of telomerase within human skin cells. And they did it by 1997. And when they activated that enzyme working with the human skin cells in the petri dish, they actually activated it and they saw the chromosome repair the damage that was done, just like we see with our skin when we get a cut. And he got Inventor of the Year runner-up at that point in doing that in 1997. And they didn't really know the role and what that really meant. It was a very controlled environment, and it was just a particular, a singular cell. Working on the heels of Bill's published work, Dr. Ronald DeFino was able to head up a group of researchers, and they did it in mice. They were able to do exactly what Bill did in the mice, or what they were able to do with the mice, what Bill did with the human skin cells. Now, back in 1997, Bill and his research team had a theory that, wow, if we could do that to this guy, if we could heal all of the DNA in all of his cells, skin, hair, eyes, organs, bones, muscle, everything, what would happen to him? Now, remember, the only reason that this guy looks like this is because he's lost the DNA in his cells, in those organs that we can visually see here. And every symptom of aging and every degenerative disease is linked to that process. So if you could fix that, what would happen to this guy? And they had theorized that he would go back to his mid-20s, like 25, 26. And then when Harvard did it with the mice and actually proved that that was the case, they interviewed Bill a few years later. This was around 2011. And this is about an 11-page article on Bill Andrews, and one of the longest articles ever on one person and the science behind what they had contributed. And very important role that Bill plays. In fact, I believe that Bill's the biggest contributor as to why telomeres was awarded the Nobel Prize. And so, again, it's been a great honor to be able to work with Bill, and even a bigger honor to go out and help educate people on the role that telomeres play. Now, this is myself and Bill Andrews. That's me coming up on about 9 years ago. And I look significantly younger today in my 50s than I do there about 9 years ago. And it's not just on the outside appearance, the skin and the hair, it's everything, my endurance, my mental acuity, and even my intellect, my cardiovascular system, and my endurance and my recovery. It's better than it's ever been in my 50s. And this was a little video that we had put together for me to go and take this information to the healthcare professionals. It was just that endorsement by Bill. And then right here, Bill recently posted on a comment that I know more about telomeres than most scientists that call themselves telomere biologists. And that's because of the role that I'm playing in helping to get out there in the trenches and working with individuals to not only teach them the science behind it, but what they can do in the way of telomere support and what's available now because of science and research. And this is me. I would have been younger than 35 years old. I was probably about 32, 33, 34, right around here. And this is me today in my 50s, and this is after learning about telomeres and how I could more effectively support my telomeres. So a lot of integrity and science behind what we've learned and what I'm sharing with people. And it's very fulfilling because it is impacting people's lives. We're really unprecedented and really pioneering something in a way that it's never happened before. And it's just, again, been a very purposeful, very purpose-filled life. And I'm very lit up by it, very enthused by it, and excited to be able to share this information. I'm not going to play the video right here, but this is ABC News reporting on what Dr. Ronald DeFino and his research group did with the mice, like Bill did with the human skin cells. So what we see here is the Nobel Prize being awarded shortly after. Why? Because this is not a human skin cell in a petri dish. This is a living, breathing mammal like you and me. And they use mice because they develop the same kind of degenerative diseases that we do, being mammals. And when they lose their DNA, they develop things like diabetes, osteoporosis, cancer, Alzheimer's, cardiovascular issues. And when they activated the enzyme in the mice, telomerase, what they saw on a molecular level was that these nucleic bonds were reestablishing the connections in all of their cells. So they could see that on a molecular level, but what they saw observationally with the mice is they actually did get younger physiologically. And again, this goes back to like a computer. When it loses some software, it has glitches and it doesn't run optimally. But when we get that software restored, the computer runs optimally and like there was never anything wrong. Well, we're actually seeing that in the physiology of a mammal right here through these studies that Dr. Ronald DeFino and his researchers were able to do. So it wasn't just the skin and the hair, it was their bones and their cardiovascular system and the diabetes that they had. They didn't call it diabetes in the research papers, they called it glucose levels. They normalized. They had lost 25% of their brain capacity, and that would be like severe Alzheimer's in the study. And what happened is that capacity was restored. And so the symptoms of Alzheimer's went away, and the mice started passing at 100% through the tests that they were running them through to evaluate them. And even the atrophy of the brain was reversed. This is before, and then they restored the DNA by activating the telomerase, which is an innate ability within the chromosomes. And it actually restored the size of the brain. It did that with the bones as well, without changing their diet. Their cardiovascular system, again, their glucose levels. It was a complete observation of the reversal of the aging and disease process within these mice. And then right after that, it was awarded the Nobel Prize because of the role that they now understand that telomeres play, which you can see and admit that that's a very, profound role that the telomeres are playing. So what we've come to expect and I guess state as being normal is this aging process where we get older and older, the health challenges start to show up and these degenerative issues. And we've kind of taken this on as a normal process, but it's really not normal. It's not natural. I tell people in my presentation, the house that I live in right out here in the front yard, the grass looks the same as the day when we moved in almost 15 years ago. The bushes and the trees, other than growing and getting bigger, they still look as healthy and vibrant as the day when they were, just young trees and bushes. And so nature knows how to run optimally unless something gets in the way. And what's happened is this is not natural. And another way of, stating that and really stating the obvious of this not being natural, pre-teenagers are now having the degenerative diseases that you used to get when you were 60, 70, 75, 80 years old. There's now osteoporosis in pre-teenagers, type 2 diabetes in brand new babies that are being born. Infants have type 2 diabetes and other degenerative and cognitive issues that didn't exist with these younger pre-teenagers and adolescents. So not only is this not natural, we've actually sped it up. And that's because of the accelerated telomere shortening. That's a man-made issue. And it has a lot to do with the chemicals and the stress and the different environmental things that are going on. Now, this would be more along the lines of nature, right? Maintaining optimal wellness and health and the ability to operate at that optimal level. I would say there are other cultures that are closer to doing this. In the Himalayas, you have the Hutus who live to be 120, 125 consistently. They don't have these degenerative diseases like we do over here. And have you ever been introduced to somebody or know somebody that's from another country and they come here and they start eating the food and they recognize the downward spiral in their health? And so, I'm stating the obvious, but to be able to put the facts and the science behind what we have come to recognize in most cases as the obvious. Now, if you're on a program like this where you're accelerating your telomere shortening and you're introduced to a way where you can actually support the body to run more optimal on this telomere level, what you would see is something more like this. And this is what we're seeing today. And we've seen it in science fiction movies where they show something more close to this or, something like this. Those science fiction movies are based on the real science that's been awarded the Nobel Prize. And we're actually seeing in actual individuals now, things like this, more close to this, where people are learning the knowledge and the ability, because again, of the development of things that have come out because of this science and research, and you start to implement them into your daily regimen, into your lifestyle. And it's very rewarding to share this information. So, I'm going to end right here. What the point of this presentation is to really help you understand the role that telomeres play, introduce you. You may have just learned that there's something called a telomere, and now you know the role that it's playing in your health. And so if I asked you the question, what would you rather have, long telomeres or short telomeres? And if you can answer very confidently that you would rather have long telomeres and that would make a profound difference in your life, and you understand why now, you know more than pretty much everybody on the planet. I would say at least 99% of the people are out there. And even in the healthcare profession, and even those that have gone on and got their medical license and are practicing medicine, I've lectured to them. A lot of them do not even know about a telomere. And so, that's very empowering information. And there are some things that you can do to help support your telomeres and lifestyle choices that you can make immediately in both abstaining from things and also incorporating things into your life. And so I'll make another video that's going to be separate from this on those options that are available now today. But just get back with the person that shared this with you, and I'm sure that they'd be more than happy to share that portion of what you can do to support your telomeres today. So thanks for joining me, and thanks for allowing me to share that information with you.